Hey, it's Dave from CG Shortcuts. Welcome to the ultimate beginner's guide to learning Cinema 4D in 2026. In this video, I'll try to cover everything you should know before starting your Cinema 4D career. I'll break it all down into chapters as well, so you can easily skip ahead to just the parts you want to watch. And because the software and the industry is constantly changing and evolving, I'll also try to update this video every year to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information and resources. You can also find more details about what I talk about here on my website at cgshortcuts.com/guide. So let's start with probably the most important question: why should you learn Cinema 4D? So to answer that, let's take a look at all the other options available. If you want to get into 3D content creation in 2026, you'll probably end up using one of these 6 industry-leading programs, each with their own advantages and disadvantages, and each focusing on specific areas of 3D production. First, there's 3D Max, which is mainly used for game design, architectural visualization, and VFX. Maya, which specializes in character animation, VFX, and game development. Blender, which is the only free and fully open source option on our list, which is known for its modeling, animation, VFX, and game design tools. Houdini for procedural modeling, VFX, and simulations. Unreal Engine for real-time 3D, game development, and virtual production. And finally, Cinema 4D for motion graphics, which is actually a very broad term, but we'll look at that in just a second. So you'll probably end up going with one of these, depending on what field you're interested in the most and where you're looking to find work. If you're unsure which one to choose, you can always try them all out for free with their various trial or demo versions. But as this video is all about Cinema 4D, let's have a look at why you might want to use that specifically for your 3D career. Starting with, how long does it take to learn? Cinema 4D has the reputation of being the easiest 3D package to learn and the most user-friendly. It was designed to make 3D a bit more accessible, so you'll probably find working with it to be a lot more intuitive and a lot less intimidating than some of the other 3D software out there. You could literally open it up for the first time and within hours have your first 3D render without getting too bogged down in technical limitations. And if you've already got experience with other graphic design tools, such as the Adobe software, which integrates seamlessly with Cinema 4D, you'll probably find things very familiar. And it's not uncommon for 2D artists to go from no experience in 3D at all to getting paid 3D work in Cinema 4D in as little as 6 months. And we'll try to give you a plan to help you do exactly that a little bit later on in this video. Keep in mind though that Cinema 4D is a huge and very comprehensive bit of software that's constantly evolving. So I'm not sure you can ever learn everything, but if you can get your head around the main concepts, you should be able to very quickly incorporate 3D into your workflow. So what kind of work can you do in Cinema 4D? As it is a fully featured all-round 3D package, you can do just about any 3D task in Cinema 4D, but as it's grown to specialize in motion graphics, it's become the go-to tool for a broad range of work, including commercials, title sequences and trailers, brand videos and product visualizations, social media marketing, explainer videos, broadcast graphics, events, web and UI design, and to a lesser extent, it can also be used for traditional character animation and visual effects as well, among other things. So what's the job opportunities? Unlike some of the other software we looked at that might specialize in character animation or VFX, for example, where you'd most likely need to work as part of a production pipeline in one of a handful of specialist studios or VFX houses, based usually in capital cities, Cinema 4D offers a much broader range of jobs and work opportunities. Because motion graphics is such a broad field, you could find yourself working at a studio, an advertising agency, a film or television production studio, a post-production house, in-house marketing department, a game studio, and more. There's also opportunities to work from home or travel abroad, especially if you decide to go freelance. And we've actually got a huge database of studios from all around the world you can check out on our website if you'd like to find a list of potential employers near you. So how much are Cinema 4D artists paid? Here's some stats I've pulled together from a few different sources to give you an idea of the kind of salary you can expect as a Cinema 4D artist. Obviously, the more experience you have and the level of responsibility attached to your role will impact your salary expectations. And as you can see from this list, your location will also play a big part in what you can earn. Freelancers also tend to be paid quite a bit higher, but freelancing also comes with its own challenges and potentially an increased workload, so that might be something you want to consider before going down that road. And in general, 3D artists do tend to be paid more than 2D artists for a number of reasons, mainly because 3D work is often more complex and there's just a lot less 3D artists out there. Although with tools like Cinema 4D making 3D more accessible, many 2D artists are also incorporating 3D into their work these days to help them stand out from the crowd. So that's a very general overview on why you might want to learn Cinema 4D. But before we move on, let's also answer a few questions we get asked all the time. Should I use Cinema 4D or Blender, considering Blender is free? There's no doubt Blender is an amazing program, and it's only getting better and more popular every year. It can also handle just about anything you'd ever want to do in 3D as well, and it's completely free. However, with such a large user base of artists with different interests influencing its development, it's not necessarily as focused as some of the other tools out there. It does a bit of everything, but it doesn't really excel or specialize in any particular area. As we mentioned before, Cinema 4D is first and foremost a tool for motion graphics artists, and every new feature added to the software is designed specifically for that kind of work. Paying for the software actually supports this development, so Maxon can release new tools several times a year, specifically addressing the needs of the motion graphics community. And paying for the software also gives you access to support, so you can get help directly from the developers themselves. Blender does have a great community you can turn to if you need help, but you won't get the level of support you might expect with being a paid customer. Unfortunately, Cinema 4D isn't exactly cheap, though it does offer better value than some of the other software on our list, and they only offer a 14-day trial rather than a free learning edition, which some of the other packages offer. So if you're on a budget or really only want to get into 3D as a hobby, Blender might be a better choice. But I think if you're serious about 3D motion graphics, Cinema 4D has proven to be the best tool for the job, which is why most studios doing this kind of thing tend to use it. And I think if that's the kind of thing you're interested in, it's probably going to be worth the investment. And to be honest, the software should really pay for itself after you start getting paid work, and should be a pretty small expense compared to what you could be making yearly as an artist. Also, when it comes to learning anything, I think the more invested you are, the greater the urge you'll have to succeed. So because you've paid good money for the software, you're probably more likely to use it and push yourself to learn it. Is Houdini better than Cinema 4D? There's definitely some overlapping features between Cinema 4D and Houdini, but with its more advanced VFX toolset, you'll probably find you can pull off some more elaborate and complex effects in Houdini, if that's the kind of thing you're into. But this does tend to come with a much steeper learning curve, and to be honest, using Houdini for most day-to-day motion graphics tasks can be extremely overkill. So I'd say if you're new to 3D, you might want to start with Cinema 4D, so you can get your head around all the basic concepts and techniques. Then if you want to take your VFX skills up a notch and start creating more complicated effects, you could look into Houdini. A lot of studios use both in their pipelines, as they do work very well together. So they might use Cinema 4D for the brunt of the work, but incorporate a few complex shots created in Houdini as well. And there's definitely plenty of motion graphics artists out there using both. Houdini also has a learning edition called Apprentice, which you can download and use for free, which is very cool. And their indie license is also very affordable. So it's definitely worth looking into when you're ready to dive into some more advanced stuff. I hate my job. Should I quit and become a Cinema 4D artist? I'd say if you're prepared to put in the work and potentially take a temporary pay cut, it could be a good option if you actually enjoy doing this kind of work. There's definitely job opportunities out there, decent pay, and a lot of variety and flexibility in terms of work. And now with more demand than ever, more ways to learn, better technology, and a lower cost barrier to entry, there's probably never been a better time to get into 3D. I personally can't think of a job I'd rather be doing, and the fact that you can actually get paid for doing something you love is really just the icing on the cake. But all I can do is give you some facts and some details about my own experience, so ultimately the decision will come down to you and your current situation. So weigh up your options and take into account any responsibilities you might currently have, and hopefully you'll be able to decide if it's the right career path for you. You can always message me anytime if you have any questions or need a bit of career advice. Will AI make 3D artists obsolete? AI has come a long way since last year's video, and it's easily the #1 concern I hear from people thinking about starting a 3D career. So let's address the elephant in the room. In my opinion, the short answer is no, but it is completely changing how we work. Instead of fighting it, I've personally embraced AI as a bit of a superpower for my freelance business and Cinema 4D workflow. I use it for concepting, building mood boards, storyboarding, custom texture maps, decals, and generating maps directly from UV layouts. I also use it to spin up non-hero or background 3D assets, generate temporary music and sound effects, and even write custom Python scripts and plugins to automate repetitive tasks inside Cinema 4D. but I don't often use it for creating fully AI generated video at this point, because that can be really hard to control, expensive, and often has a very recognizable look that can make a professional project feel a bit cheap, in my opinion. So I still do most of the work in 3D because I prefer the look, and you're always going to have much more control over the finished product by building it as much as you can directly in Cinema 4D. And clients still do appreciate the flexibility you get by doing the whole project in 3D. But the reality is that clients expect you to use AI these days, and they're even using it themselves to handle low-level tasks, like quick graphic design changes or basic localizations, all now done in-house. But in my opinion, that's actually a win for motion graphics artists. It means AI is automating away the most boring, repetitive parts of the job. But clients still rely on us for the high-level creative stuff, which is actually the part of the job we want to be doing most of the time anyway. There's a famous economic concept called Jevons paradox, which essentially states that as technology makes production cheaper and more efficient, the demand for that work can actually skyrocket. Which for me personally is exactly what I'm seeing right now. Because we can produce high-quality work faster and cheaper, clients actually want more of it. Think of it like when Cinema 4D and early 3D software first arrived on the scene. Traditional 2D animators thought it would destroy the industry, but instead, making 3D accessible exploded the market and created an entirely new world of motion graphics jobs. Plus, if fear of AI scares people away from entering the industry, it just means less competition for you. The artists that understand solid design principles, composition, and human taste, and learn to integrate AI to give themselves an advantage, are probably the ones who are going to win in the current market. So I'd suggest learning the AI tools as they come along to complement your work in Cinema 4D. How to get started. Okay, so if you've made it this far, I'm guessing you've decided to stick with Cinema 4D. So let's have a look at the steps you need to take to get started and progress as fast as possible. Firstly, you're going to need a computer to run the software. And while it will run fine on Windows or Mac, we recommend getting a desktop PC for a number of reasons as listed here. But if you need a bit more convincing and some more information about the exact setup you should get, we've done another video going through all your options here you might want to check out as well. Then you'll need a Cinema 4D license, which these days is only available via subscription. We recommend going with just the Cinema 4D option here to start with, which now also includes Redshift Renderer, which we'll talk about shortly. But as a beginner, you probably won't need any of the other options, which just give you access to extra software and resources. But you can always look into that later on. As we mentioned before, there is no free or discounted learning edition. You can only download a 14-day trial or apply for a student discount if you're actually enrolled in a qualifying school or university. The 14-day trial is tied to your email address, so in theory, you could just start another trial with a different email address every time it expires while you're learning the software, then pay for the full thing when you're ready. Or another option might be to go halves in a paid license with a friend, so you can split the cost. Just be aware that the license will only work on one computer at a time, and you'll have to release the license every time you want to switch machines, which is a bit of a pain. You'll also need an internet connection to connect to the license server, but once connected, you can use Cinema 4D offline for 7 days before needing to reconnect again. And you can also access Cinema 4D via a monthly subscription, which might be a good option if you just want to test it out before committing to the yearly fee. Another thing you might look into getting, if you have the budget, is a decent graphics card, so you can take advantage of GPU rendering, which basically means you'll be able to render faster and work faster in the software. And the faster you can work, the faster you can learn. These are a few good options that will give you the most bang for your buck, but take a look at the other video we mentioned before for recommendations on this as well. Okay, so we're almost ready to dive into the software, but there's one very important question we need to answer first. What renderer should I use? This is one of those things we get asked all the time, and it's probably going to depend on personal preference and the kind of work you'll be doing. Here's a few pros and cons of all the main renderers available, but it might be worth trying them all out before committing to one of them. But having said that, if you don't have the time, we've actually tried all of these over the years and can recommend going with Redshift, especially if you're brand new to Cinema 4D. And there's a few reasons why we think it's the best option, mainly because it's the most popular and widely used renderer in Cinema 4D. It's super fast as a GPU renderer or a CPU renderer, and it's designed specifically for production use, which is why most studios use it. And it also actually comes with Cinema 4D and is developed by Maxon directly, so it's already very tightly integrated into C4D. Plus, it's affordable, reliable, and very actively developed. And you can actually head over here to their public roadmap for a full list of features and to see what they're currently working on, which is pretty cool. So now that we've got everything we need to get started, let's hop into Cinema 4D and start learning. Upon opening the software for the first time, you'll quickly realize that Cinema 4D is a huge application. There's loads of buttons and menus everywhere, so it can be a bit overwhelming. So where do you start and what should you learn first? In last year's video, I offered a downloadable PDF checklist to help guide new users through the process. But to make things even easier, I've completely rebuilt that roadmap into an interactive step-by-step guide directly on my website. If you head over to cgshortcuts.com/guide, you'll see the brand new learning framework broken down into 3 simple steps. Step 1, the overview. This step is actually about getting your bearings, and you're actually doing it right now just by watching this video. It's designed to give you a complete career in industry overview. Figure out what hardware and tools you need, and lay down a definitive plan of action before you even download the software. So as soon as you finish watching this video, you can jump straight to Step 2, the basics. This is where you learn the foundations to see if you actually enjoy the workflow. On the guide page, you'll find a collection of completely free resources to get you started with the basics, including the Cinema 4D Jumpstart course, where I take you through building a complete 3D scene from start to finish. You'll be introduced to all the core concepts like modeling, animation, camera, lighting, materials, MoGraph, simulation, and rendering, all while learning powerful tips and tricks to kickstart your Cinema 4D journey. Then, if you want to dive deeper into any specific tools or workflows in the software, you can try the Cinema 4D Essentials course, which is a curated collection of the absolute best tutorials from around the web, organized into easy to follow categories so you can tick them off one by one as you master each tool. Then, as you start getting the hang of things, you can try browsing the library of free project-based tutorials, so you can put everything you've learned so far into practice with some real-world production examples. And once you've mastered the basics and you're ready to take things to the next level, you can move on to Step 3, the advanced. At this stage, you should have a good handle on the software and a lot more confidence. So you're ready to dive into some more advanced training to further refine your skills. And there's a few good ways to go about that. If you're looking for the free route, you could continue hunting around on YouTube, though finding advanced structured workflows there can be a bit tricky. Or another free option would be Cineversity, Maxon's official training hub, which comes free with your C4D subscription. While some of their content is a bit older, their structured courses by legendary trainers like EJ Hassenfratz and Noseman are brilliant. Or if you wanted to invest into some premium training, platforms like School of Motion or Motion Design School offer deep step-by-step masterclasses, though they can be a little bit pricey. Alternatively, a lot of top artists also host their own Patreon pages, which can be a highly cost-effective way to get premium training and learn specialized styles directly from your favorite designers. Or, seeing as you're already here, if you find my straight-to-the-point style of teaching works well for you, you can also check out CG Shortcuts membership over at cgshortcuts.com. Membership comes with loads of advanced training and tutorials, time-saving project files, a handy Cinema 4D plugin, and AI Studio. And best of all, it also includes full support, so you can ask me any C4D questions you might have or get help directly with your projects. But with that said, you don't need any of these premium extras on day one. Focus on the free basics first, and when you're ready to take things to the next level, any of these advanced options will help you get there faster and smarter. So here's a few tips to help you learn even faster. Even after you get a job and start your career, you still always need to be learning and improving. Try to watch tutorials or courses every chance you get. I personally have made it a habit to watch at least one tutorial every working day while sitting at my desk, eating breakfast or lunch, or during a coffee break. Another thing you could do if you commute is loading up your phone or tablet with video tutorials that you can watch on your way to and from work to fill the time. And if you're already working or studying, you'll also learn loads from other artists and students, especially from those with a bit more experience than you. So feel free to be curious and ask questions. Most people will be happy to share their knowledge, and some of the best tips and tricks can be found this way. I'd also say never get too comfortable. The software and the industry are constantly changing, so you need to keep up with things as they come. Always be learning and improving, and don't be afraid to incorporate new tools and techniques into your workflow. It's super important to stay ahead of the game, especially in the age of AI and the increasing ease to getting into the industry. And most importantly, practice as much as you can. Try to use the software every day, even if it's just for an hour. The more you use it, the better you'll become. Doing daily renders and regular personal work is a great way to develop your skills and build a bit of a routine. So now that you've got a plan and know exactly what you need to learn first, let's answer a few more questions you might have. Do I need plugins? I would say straight up as a beginner that you do not need any plugins at all. Cinema 4D can handle almost every 3D task without any third-party extensions. So concentrate on just using C4D and Redshift for now, and don't waste your time or money on any plugins. However, if you are a bit more experienced and looking for some tools to speed up your workflow or give you some extra creative options, here's a list of plugins we use regularly that you might want to check out. And you can also find an extensive list of all the resources and time-saving tools we recommend on our website at cgshortcuts.com/tools. How to get work. As I mentioned before, there are loads of different paths you can take toward getting a job as a Cinema 4D artist. It really depends on the kind of work you want to do, your experience, where you live, and your salary expectations. So it might help if I quickly share how I got into the industry. Keep in mind though that things have changed a lot since I started out. So after high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just wanted to work in the creative industry. I applied for an animation course, but I was rejected. So I ended up just doing an arts degree in digital media. This was way back in the early 2000s, where there was very little, if any, training outside specialist schools. YouTube didn't even exist back then, and most 3D software cost about $20,000 for a single license. And the computers to run the software were just as expensive. My course was really just an introduction to all the different media tools that existed at the time, like Photoshop, Illustrator, and Flash, which no longer exists. But we also had After Effects and Maya. But that stuff was very niche back then, so even the teachers didn't have all that much experience with the software. So looking back, I don't think I really learned that much at uni. It was a fun experience, but I can't really say I'd recommend that route these days, especially because university has become extremely expensive. So rather than getting yourself into huge amounts of debt right off the bat, I think your money is better spent on software, hardware, and short courses to teach yourself. I only ever found work based on the strength of my portfolio and never the fact that I had a degree. But anyway, after university, I self-taught myself a bit more Photoshop and Illustrator, and eventually landed a job at a printing company. Mainly I was just running the machines and printing flyers and brochures, but I also got to do a bit of graphic design as well. And those skills then led me to my next job at a web design company. They had an in-house After Effects guy, so I learned a few things from him and decided I'd like to get into motion graphics. So I worked on my first showreel in my spare time and started looking for that kind of work. But my first reel was pretty bad and thrown together very quickly, so I didn't have much luck landing a job. Plus, there wasn't much opportunity for that kind of thing in my city. So I decided to pack my bags and move to London in the UK, which was and still is a bit of a creative hub. I managed to land another web design job at an agency in London and slowly moved into their in-house motion graphics department. It was at this time when I first started using Cinema 4D, which I found so much easier than Maya or 3D Max. So I started incorporating 3D into my work where I could. I was doing mainly corporate and explainer videos at the time, and content for websites and social media. But as our office was in the heart of Soho, where all the big visual effects houses were, I started getting interested in VFX. But with my Cinema 4D experience, I wasn't able to land a job specifically in VFX, but I did eventually find work in a trailer house. So I was making graphics and effects for movie trailers, sizzle reels, commercials, and that sort of thing. They actually had a full 3D and motion graphics department based on Cinema 4D and After Effects. So I learnt loads from the team there. But after 4 years of using Cinema 4D every day and getting used to the way agencies and studios operated, I decided to go freelance as a 2D and 3D motion graphics artist. My first few jobs were through contacts I'd made working at the different studios, and then I got a bit more work through word of mouth. It was all a bit stressful at first, but I eventually managed to build up a bit of a client base, so the work got more and more consistent. And I have to say, after freelancing, I don't think I could ever go back to a full-time position. The flexibility and variety of work you can get as a freelancer, not to mention the money, is so much better in my opinion, but I think I was only able to get to that point after my agency and studio experience. So after 5 years freelancing, I then decided to try my hand at teaching. So I started my YouTube channel and training website, where I now spend most of my time teaching and doing the odd freelance gig from time to time. So yeah, I'm very happy with the way things turned out and my journey to where I am now. I got to work with clients from all over the world on some really interesting projects. And best of all, I get paid to do the job I love. Your career might not necessarily be as linear as you might like, but if you keep pushing forward, I'm sure it'll work out well in the end. So I think that will just about do it for this video. If you need help at any time during your studies or with your Cinema 4D career in general, feel free to get in touch with me via my website, where you can ask me any technical or career questions you might have. And you can also find loads of free training and resources on there as well. And if you become a member, you'll get access to all of my premium content specifically designed to help you learn faster and smarter. Check it out at cgshortcuts.com. But that's it for now. All the best with your Cinema 4D learning, and I'll catch you next time.